You are listening to 106.7, Wilmington's Big Talker, and my name is Paul Vallone. I'd like to welcome you to Guns, Politics, and Freedom, where each Sunday at 5 p.m., as part of the Sunday Night Political Power Block, we give you the ammunition to better defend your gun rights. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. In case you aren't familiar with me, I direct Grassroots North Carolina, or GRNC, since 1994, our state's most effective gun rights organization. As its director, I was involved in drafting and passing our original concealed handgun law. Since then, GRNC has gone on to engineer passage of concealed handgun reciprocity, our purchase permit bypass, castle doctrine and stand your ground, the expansion of concealed carry into state and municipal parks, restaurants, public assemblies, educational properties, and much more. Grassroots North Carolina is exactly what the name implies, a grassroots collection of volunteers from all walks of life who share a common concern that our constitutionally guaranteed freedoms are being eroded. Check us out at grnc.org. That's grnc.org. Later in today's show, our guest will be Jeff Knox, director of the Firearms Coalition and son of the legendary Neil Knox, who, together with Harlan Carter, turned the NRA into the legislative juggernaut it is today. Jeff will be discussing the succession of leadership at the NRA, as rumors indicate Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre may soon retire. Jeff will also discuss the public debate he has had with Marion Hammer and others over the recent financial and legislative failures at the organization. And finally, we will discuss who will best serve the NRA on the board of directors as the group holds its annual election of board members. But first, in gun rights news, the opening salvo at Fort Sumter has been fired, and the war is now underway. As you may know, 3 anti-gun bills have been introduced in Congress. In the House, we have legislation, namely H.R. 8, for so-called universal background checks, a.k.a. universal gun registration. In the Senate, we have Dianne Feinstein's ban on semi-automatic firearms, and also in the Senate, we have Marco Rubio's bill for extreme risk protection orders, or red flag laws. But in every Congress, bills are introduced primarily for show and are destined to die for lack of a committee hearing. That is, unless they get propelled by party leadership. And that is exactly what Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her leftist cohorts in the U.S. House began doing just this week with hearings on so-called gun violence. House Democrats this is a headline. House Democrats start push for new gun control laws at emotional hearing, said the San Francisco Chronicle in a rare moment of honesty from the left. The newspaper went on to say breathlessly, and I quote, "Newly empowered House Democrats convened the first congressional hearing on gun violence in nearly a decade Wednesday, setting the stage for likely passage of gun control legislation sponsored by a Bay Area lawmaker." That Bay Area lawmaker would be Congressman Mike Thompson, Democrat of California, and the bill would be H.R. 8, which would make you a felon for having the audacity to even hand your gun to a friend to check out. As is their wont, Democrats trotted in victims of gun violence, including one of those whose loved one was shot in Ecuador, so I really can't say I understand the relevance of that. But there was one victim of gun violence they did not want to hear from, and that would be House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, Republican victim of a whacked-out Bernie Sanders supporter. Is that a redundant statement? I think it is. Who shot up a congressional softball practice. Scalise asked to testify and was refused, perhaps because what he had to say didn't at all fit with the Democrat gun ban agenda. Not to be silenced, however, Scalise put out his own statement in which he noted that the guns used by James Hodgkinson to attack Republican legislators were purchased legally in Illinois, which, by the way, has some of the more stringent gun laws in the country, that only armed intervention by Capitol Police saved his life and the lives of others, that nothing in H.R. 8 being fast-tracked by the Democrats would have stopped the shootings, that none of the failures of background checks to stop shooters at Virginia Tech and elsewhere would have been remedied by H.R. 8, that H.R. 8 would make criminals of otherwise law-abiding citizens, and finally, that like the congressional baseball shooting, it is armed citizens who every day stop violent offenders from committing crimes. No, I don't think Representative Scalise's testimony would have fit with Nancy Pelosi's agenda at all. But in another rare moment of honesty, the Chronicle also admitted that, and I quote, Democrats signaled they would be gearing up for far more than the background check legislation, which could move toward a vote by the end of the month. Far more. And you can expect much more frankness from the leftists as they begin feeling increasingly confident and shed their usual camouflage of merely calling for common sense gun laws. To keep abreast of the attack, I strongly urge you to go to our website at grnc.org, and on the right side of the page, you can sign up for legislative alerts. No membership is required. Again, that is grnc.org. Elsewhere, in the gun control laboratory, otherwise known as Britain, citizens can no longer be trusted with sharp objects. Since virtually banning the private ownership of firearms, violent crime of all types has exploded in the UK, but knife attacks have led the wave of violence. So now the Home Secretary is proposing to add knife crime prevention orders to the existing bill, which would already further regulate what are being called offensive weapons and would increase penalties for, quote, habitual knife carriers. Among the other provisions of the offensive weapons bill, it would create new criminal offenses prohibiting the dispatch of bladed products and corrosive products sold online to residential addresses. Yes, that means you cannot buy a knife by mail. It would create new criminal offenses on delivery companies of delivering a bladed article or corrosive product on behalf of a seller outside the UK. It would update the definition of a flick knife and prohibit the possession of flick knives and gravity knives, even though their sale is already prohibited. I guess that's not working out well for them. It would amend the section of the Criminal Justice Act of 1988 to make it a criminal offense to possess certain offensive weapons, such as knuckle dusters and zombie knives. And there are some other things, which include, I should note, a ban on bump stocks, just like the United States. Now, I'm sure that will have a huge impact on violent crime in the UK, since the semi-automatic firearms to which bump stocks attach are already prohibited. We'll be taking a break in just a moment, but first, more gun rights news. Happily, last week, a home invader and registered sex offender was shot by a homeowner in eastern North Carolina. According to WITN, police in one Eastern Carolina city, say a registered sex offender from New Bern was shot after he broke into a home early this morning. Elizabeth City police say it happened in the 400 block of Bell Street around 6:30 a.m. Police say Tyrell Johnson came into the home through a back door and was confronted by the homeowner, who ended up shooting him twice. The 30-year-old man drove himself to Albemarle Centera Hospital, according to police. I guess the homeowner wasn't that good a shot. They do not have any update on Johnson's condition. Police say no charges have been brought in the home invasion and shooting, saying that this is an active investigation. Johnson has been in the sex registry since a 2008 conviction in Pasquotank County, I'm sorry if I can't say that correctly, for second-degree sexual offense. He was also convicted of manslaughter at the same time. The man was released from prison in August 2017, but is listed as a parole absconder. That's interesting. Then we have, also in good news, an Antifa member was recently shot by police, according to the Truth on Guns. Charlie Landros, aged old enough to know better, loved his far-left activism. He belonged to an armed Antifa group we've covered, training oppressed peoples in armed self-defense. I'll cut to the chase, but anyways, it seems like the radical Antifa activist showed up at his daughter's school, intending to pick her up, but had actually lost custody of his child, and police were called to remove him. Well, when they got there, they discovered that Charlie had a 9mm handgun on his hip and a backpack full of ammunition, which he happily pulled out on police, and they shot him dead. Apparently, he got some self-defense training as part of this armed Antifa group, but I guess it didn't serve him all that well, since police did pretty much what police would be expected to do. As they say, we have no doubt that Bloomberg's Every Town for Gun Control and Gabby Gifford's similar group will of course count Landeros's death as another school shooting, and another reason we should surrender our right to keep and bear arms. You are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker. After a short break, we will return with our guest Jeff Knox, director of the Firearms Coalition, and his comments on the problems of the NRA. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com. Our show is sponsored by Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. Our guest today is Jeff Knox, director of the Firearms Coalition and son of the legendary Neil Knox. I'm dating myself here, but back in the 1990s, when I began to become involved in the gun rights movement, Neil was an early mentor who became a close friend. Although Neil Knox died in 2005, some of you may still remember that together with Harlan Carter, Knox was instrumental in turning the NRA into the political juggernaut it is today. Now, as a disclaimer, I am personally persona non grata at the NRA offices in Fairfax, having been reportedly denounced at NRA board meetings more than once when I called out malfeasance by the organization. But to a much greater degree, probably for his much greater effectiveness, Jeff Knox, Neil's son, has received criticism for hating on the NRA in ammoland.com and elsewhere, for having the audacity to point out the organization's flaws and errors. Jeff has joined us previously on Guns, Politics, and Freedom and returns to us again today. Jeff, you troublemaker, you, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, Paul. I'm glad to be in good troublemaker company.
Yes, we do seem to share that, don't we? Anyway.
Yeah.
Former NRA President Marion Hammer doesn't seem to think much of your critique of the financial condition of the NRA. What exactly is the disagreement?
Well, let's start with the basics. The NRA is having some financial troubles, and the NRA's had financial troubles before. Nancy Pelosi is probably going to rescue them from their current $30 million deficit. But the core problems that these represent, and as an example, this $30 million deficit that we're running right now, this is not uncommon for NRA in recent years. As a matter of fact, they've been in negative numbers for 6 of the last 10 years. And that's very unusual for a nonprofit organization like the NRA. And it shouldn't be that way. There should be reserves. But the core problems, from my perspective, are that they screwed up with this carry guard debacle. They went into every state, dumped this program out there. They didn't clear it with all of the state regulators, and so now several state regulators have set up fines, and there are lawsuits going back and forth. No. There's the big stink up in New York, of course, the battle with Governor Cuomo. Correct
me if I'm wrong, but that's what Marion says is really at the source of the NRA's problems, that Cuomo is trying to get banks to stop doing business with the NRA, and that's why they've sued him. Is that a fair assessment of her? Is she right, I guess?
Well, that's true, and I think it's more Don McDougal who was bringing that up. But yes, they are. But for some reason, people are conflating the lawsuits in New York with the $30 million negative number. That $30 million negative number was at the end of 2017. That's the last report we have. 2018 was a very bad year for NRA, so I expect that that number is much worse than it was at that time. And the expenses of the lawsuits are at most in the several $100,000 range.
So tell me now, what is the NRA
range.
doing wrong? What exactly? Why are they running this humongous deficit? And I know this. You could fill a volume on this, but we'll try and be brief about it. But tell me why.
They're spending too much money. They're spending too much money in stupid ways and in ways that just don't make sense. We have one vendor that is paid over $40 million a year, and that's the stuff that's reported. And it's very likely that there's much more that's not reported.
Who is the vendor exactly?
That's Ackerman McQueen, our PR and advertising agency. They also own First Freedom Magazine, and they own NRA TV. So this is something that most NRA members don't realize, that when you open First Freedom Magazine and you see Mark Keefe, the executive editor of First Freedom, he is not an NRA employee. Neither is Cam Edwards at NRA TV. He is not an NRA employee. Or Dana Lesh, or any of the other people that you see on NRA TV.
Actually, you're teaching me something new, and I thought I knew some of this stuff, but that's news to me. Okay, thanks.
These people work for Ackerman McQueen, not for the NRA. And Ackerman McQueen is paid $40 million a year as declared on their tax statement.
Oh my.
And that's problematic. There's also a phone bank operation that is paid $30 million a year. And here's one that'll really grab you, Paul. Not only does NRA pay for each call that goes out, they also, the phone bank keeps the money that comes in from those solicitations.
Oh my.
They don't give the money to NRA. They are considered basically a loss leader. That if they call me and I give them $20, well, the phone company keeps the $20 and they send my name to NRA and say, this guy, Jeff Knox, who you sent us his name and phone number, he gave us $20, so you can hit him up for more.
Oh my heavens! And we thought the United Way was
bad.
Oh God! I can't spend too much time on the NRA's financial problems right now. As you said, hopefully Nancy Pelosi will save them from their from their indebtedness.
Right.
She's already started that.
Spending more money. Yep.
But in any
case, she's going to scare people into sending more money, and NRA is going to do better this year than they did the last couple of years, no doubt.
But none of that means that we shouldn't consider reforming the NRA. And actually, on that note, and I'm going to actually save the next part for the next segment. But on that note, it's widely conjectured that Wayne LaPierre will be retiring soon. He is getting on in years. You got any thoughts on that?
I hope that he does. It's been rumored that he was going to. He is, 69 this year, so he's about to turn 70. And that's not old, but the guy's been working long hours for many, many years. So he's been at NRA for 30 years. And
God knows he's made millions at the NRA and millions.
He's being paid $1.5 million a year at this point, which is astounding. They're calling me and asking me for $20, and Wayne is being paid $1.5 million. I have a problem with that. So my concern is that the NRA that the board is going to replace Wayne with another political hack rather than a professional manager, and most importantly, a Second Amendment purist. Because I believe that the leadership of NRA should be totally dedicated to the principles of liberty, and that political considerations that the staff should be trying to rein them in from going full bore for the Second Amendment. to bring in, you have to have political considerations. That would be a bad move to try and do this or that. But you should want to do this or that. You should want to repeal the 86 machine gun ban. But they won't even talk about it, won't even think about it, and that's part of the problem. So we need someone in the NRA who will stand up for the pure liberty up at the top, and they need to be a professional manager who will move things in the right direction. I also just submitted an article to Ammo Land that should be coming out today on specific ideas I think the board needs to take to fix the NRA.
Well, as you correctly note at one point, the board, I think, well, actually, it isn't used so much. I am the one that has been saying that, unlike other organizations, I don't think the board runs the NRA. I think the NRA runs the board. By and large, they get people who are wonderful figureheads and have lovely names and actually don't know that much about the mechanics of the gun rights movement. Would you not agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we're going to go into that
whatever
more.
Wayne says.
We'll go into that more in the next segment. And also I'd like to talk in the next segment about your little tiff with Doug McDougall at ammoland.com, who is a Friends of the NRA committee member and general NRA apologist, which I guess has culminated in an interview with you in which you mentioned that the NRA works to insulate its board of directors from member input. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Folks, in the meantime, you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com. After a short break, we will return with still more critical information enabling you to better defend your gun rights. My name is Paul Vallone. You are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com. Our show is sponsored by Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. Our guest today is Jeff Knox, director of the Firearms Coalition. Does a lot of writing in ammoland.com and elsewhere, and has had some wonderful critiques of some of the things that the NRA is not doing its best job at. And as such, he has drawn fire from Marion Hammer and Doug McDougall, who is a writer at ammoland.com, Friends of the NRA committee member and general NRA apologist. And this has culminated recently in an interview between the two, which was published on ammoland.com. I strongly suggest you check it out. One of the things that you have said, Jeff, is that the NRA tends to insulate its board from member input. What did you mean by that? Exactly, tell us what that means.
Well, I believe that it should be easy for members to communicate with the board of directors. And I simply do not understand why there isn't a member area on the NRA website and even a forum or messaging just like you do on Congress where you can message your board members and let them know what you think. As it is, it's gotten a little bit better. You can write a letter to a specific board member at the NRA address on Waples Mill Road in Virginia, and it will probably get to them. Same with emails, but because John Fraser, the secretary, is doing a little bit better job of getting that communication to them. But there isn't a formal system for doing it, and I think that that's just shameful. NRA directors,
well, I think it's shameful. I think it's shameful, but more than that, I think it exists because, as I have said many times, unlike other nonprofit organizations, the board of directors does not run the NRA. The NRA runs the board. They pick figureheads who look lovely to the members, but who actually know relatively little about the gun rights movement, and then they tell them what they should do. Would you not agree?
Yeah, the board is a very impressive bunch of people. I mean, really, you look at each individual resume, they're some stellar people. I personally would prefer that the politicians and the celebrities be on an advisory board, a paper board that doesn't have policy decisions. But that's a different topic.
On that
as they are,
on that note, we should note that John Dingell just died at 92. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but John Dingell, former United States House of Representatives congressman, was on the NRA board of directors when he voted for the assault weapon ban. Was he not?
I think he was. He resigned when he moved into Democrat leadership in the House, but he was on the board of directors for many, many years, and actually he's the one who coined the phrase jackbooted government thugs, and he said it on the floor of Congress long before it was Wayne LaPierre was slammed for using it in a fundraising letter. But
one of the few times I actually agreed with Wayne LaPierre.
Right, and I don't understand why Wayne didn't just say, hey, I was just repeating a congressman, a Democrat congressman, so, don't blame me for this. But, yeah, we're in NRA election time right now, as a matter of fact, and there are, again, a number of good people on the list. Marion Hammer, who hasn't attended a board meeting in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at least.
Kidding me. She hasn't attended a board meeting?
No, hasn't attended a board meeting, and is the only member of the board of directors who gets a couple of $100,000 a year for her group in Florida that goes in Marion's pocket. So she's the only basically paid member of the NRA board of directors to the tune of almost $300,000 a year, but she hasn't been to a meeting in 4 or 5 years at least, and she will be up in the top. Yeah, she'll be in the top 2 or 3 vote getters for this election. I've endorsed Adam Kraut. Once again, Adam is an attorney out of Pennsylvania. He is one of the key attorneys that is challenging the bump stock ban. And Adam has run for the last couple of years and been endorsed by me and has just not quite made it. And we're hoping that that this year is the one where he gets on the board. He's a great young guy, and I'm really supportive of him. I have also endorsed Anthony Calandro out of New Jersey. Anthony is exactly what you would expect a New Jersey guy to be. He's kind of Paul Vallone with a Jersey accent.
Hey,
and
what you saying about me?
Great guy. And I think that he would be a good choice. There are 3 guys named Mark that are on the ballot. Mark Geist, who was one of the guys who defended Benghazi. Very impressive guy. I worry a little bit about his connections with Ackerman and McQueen. He's done some commercials for them for NRA, but very impressive guy. Also, Mark Robinson, who is one of your North Carolina guys who stood up.
Yes, I noted that. He's gone to fame fast, didn't he? Yes, from the Greensboro City Council meeting to the NRA board in a heartbeat. And
while I like Mark and I loved what he had to say, it's clear he needs a little more education, but we can provide education. I'm just not sure about his other qualifications to serve on the board. But I think that he would probably be a good guy on the board. And then Mark Vaughn out of Oklahoma, who was a hero in Oklahoma. A guy came into his business and started murdering people, screaming Allahu Akbar, and Mark injected him with some lead and solved that problem very quickly.
In another case of workplace violence, right?
Right.
We won't go there.
So those are the guys that I am voting for. Adam Kraut. I'm endorsing Anthony Calandro, and I'm giving honorable mentions to the 3 Marks. But okay. That's where I'm going on that. I've got a new article that's just coming out at AmmoLand, and a big article. If you want to know a little bit more about the situation at NRA, look at the big article that I wrote at firearmsnews.com.
Okay.
That one is the one that goes in depth and gives a little bit of history as well. So those are the places to find it. You can find my writing, lots of my writing, and what's going on with me at firearmscoalition.org. It's just one word, firearmscoalition.org. We're still doing improvements on the website. We had some problems a while back, and we're still fixing things. But go check that out. Look at the things that can be fixed. I'm not trying to tear down the NRA. I'm not trying to bash the NRA. I am noting problems and shortcomings, and these things need to be fixed. And the capitulation on so-called red flag laws is probably the biggest concern for me right now, because NRA has...
That should be the biggest concern for all gun owners, because unfortunately this is something that the Republicans may buy into. I mean, not only did the Florida legislature, Republican-controlled, pass a red flag law, but also Marco Rubio, for crying out loud, has introduced a bill in the Senate for a national red flag law. And what people need to understand is that this is not about keeping guns out of the hands of crazy people. It's about depriving you of due process before depriving you of your Second Amendment freedoms. Go ahead.
The NRA has given a green light on this, said that they support this as long as due process is quote-unquote protected, but their level of protection for due process is not my level, and even with due process protections, you're still targeting gun owners and targeting guns as the problem, and that's a violation of the core principles of liberty and our movement. And what this will result in is it will result in a lot of Republicans not being reelected thanks to the NRA, because just having the NRA say, oh yeah, we support this, doesn't mean that the gun voters are going to support those Republicans who go with the NRA on this. And it's going to cost us Republican seats, Republican governors, Republican congressmen, and Republican legislators in our state houses. And that's the big problem. And that's why we never, ever should capitulate on principles. And that's what the NRA is doing with this. So
hear, hear.
The problems are there, and ignoring the problems or pretending that they don't exist for the sake of unity is not a solution. We need to make solutions, and the board of directors must be involved and must take control of that organization.
Well said, Jeff. I thank you very much for joining us today. I encourage everyone to get involved with the NRA Board of Directors election and to check out Jeff's writings at ammoland.com, Firearms News, and also the Firearms Coalition website. Meanwhile, you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker. We're going to take a short break, after which we will return with still more critical information enabling you to better defend your gun rights. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, WilmingtonBigTalker.com. Our show is sponsored by Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at HyattGuns.com. As you may have heard, South Dakota recently became the 14th state to enact some version of constitutional carry, namely the ability of lawful citizens to carry concealed firearms for self-protection without the burden of obtaining governmental permission slips. That was after Republican Governor Kristi Noem signed it into law. You might also recall that last year we, here in North Carolina, were pushing House Bill 746 for permitless concealed carry. Now, what you might not know is that HB 746 is dead. Dead because it failed to become law in the last session of the North Carolina General Assembly, and that means we need to start all over again. Well, the General Assembly is back in session, and I have it on good authority, another permitless carry bill will be introduced this year. Now, last year, the Senate failed to move the bill after it passed in the North Carolina House, which eventually killed it. What happens this year will depend on the Republican majorities in both chambers. Any way you look at it, though, it will be a rougher road this year, since this past November, Republicans lost supermajorities that they held in both chambers. And it is certain that leftist Governor Roy Cooper will veto any pro-gun legislation which crosses his desk. So stay tuned for what will undoubtedly be an interesting battle. Now, before we leave today, I would like to leave you with a parting thought. By now, you have doubtless heard of the Green New Deal, ostensibly modeled after FDR's original New Deal. Indeed, Time magazine just ran a piece entitled FDR's New Deal Laid the Groundwork for the Green New Deal in Good Ways and Bad. They went on to draw parallels between the original New Deal and this new proposed atrocity. Unfortunately, though, Time went the way of the usual leftist media when it pontificated that what was bad was that FDR's original project wasn't ambitious enough. Not the truth, which was that what was bad about the original New Deal was that it charted a course for the United States toward the destination of socialism, a journey the Green New Deal has every intention of finishing. Now, being proposed by idiot communist and unfortunately Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who some have dubbed AOC, but whom I will never forevermore now call AIC for Alexandria Idiot Communist, and her cohorts, the Green New Deal would, for all practical intents and purposes, guarantee employment for all. What could be possibly the worst that could happen there? Obsolete nearly all existing structures, ban cars, ban the consumption of meat, ban air travel, and who knows what else they will ban. Now, AIC, the idiot communist, had to back off a little bit. It seems that her original website, or her website, was originally a little too honest, saying, and I quote, "We aren't sure that we'll be able to fully get rid of farting cows and airplanes that fast." Interesting. And also, it admitted to planning to provide, quote, "economic security for all who are unable or unwilling to work." Unwilling. I'm unwilling to work. I guess that means I should get a subsidy. Anyway, the blog post, it seems, promptly disappeared. But according to her economic policy advisor, Robert Hockett, professor of law and finance at Cornell University, who appeared on Tucker Carlson Tonight, this was all, quote, "some kind of document that somebody other than us has been circulating." In other words, it was all a Republican hoax, no doubt. Allow me to interject that I saw the interview in question, and if I came away with any lasting impression, it is that if Professor Hockett wants to do any more national media, he should get himself a much better wig, because the one he was wearing was, well, bizarre. Anyway, you have probably dismissed all this as the product of idiots. Most of us would. Think of just one facet of the plan, abolishing air travel. Think of it. After a lack of air ambulances killed a few thousand people, and after the first natural disaster killed a few 100,000 people for lack of the ability to transport help and supplies, although perhaps they think that the Green New Deal will end global warming and therefore end natural disasters. Maybe that's it. But what would actually end up occurring is not the elimination of air travel, but the restriction of air travel. And who would it be restricted to? Why, powerful politicians, of course. For you and me, it would be, may I see your government-issued travel permit, sir? Again, the whole thing is idiocy, right? Well, unfortunately, it is anything but. Even the idiot communist herself knows that the Green New Deal will never become law. In fact, she's only looking for a vote in Congress for a non-binding resolution. Meaningless. Well, in truth, even the non-binding resolution on the Green New Deal isn't meaningless at all. You've heard that the extremes define the middle, and nowhere is that more true than in politics. If a legislator proposes a 50% tax on ammunition, which, by the way, Representative Jillian Gilchrist just did in Connecticut, compared to a 50% tax on ammunition, a mere 10% tax doesn't sound nearly as bad, does it? Alexandria Idiot Communist will never ban air travel. She will compromise. Compromise on something like a 10% carbon footprint tax, which will reduce your ability to afford air travel. After all, you don't really need to go anywhere. You're just a peasant. It is the Green Party faithful, the Socialist Party functionaries, who really need to travel, isn't it? But you see, this is how the left defines compromise. To them, compromise is a process in which they first announce their outlandish proposals, telling us, for example, with straight faces that they plan to transform the world. But because they are reasonable people, they say they will compromise. Under their compromise, we will lose less than under their original proposal, but, and this is very important, we still lose. Please allow me to utter what will likely be an unpleasant reality, one which some, including from our own side, will denounce as extreme. Here it is. Eventually, we will have to say enough. That, of course, is why the left wants to disarm you, so that you won't be able to say enough. The big question is whether you will say it, or we will say it, before we are forced to live in mud huts in the wilderness, and your children are dying of pneumonic plague. So that is the question I want to leave you with today. When will you say enough? My name is Paul Vallone. You are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 WilmingtonBigTalker.com, where each Sunday at 5 p.m., as part of the Sunday Night Political Power Block, we give you the ammunition to better defend your right to keep and bear arms. Please check out our sponsor, Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop, at HyattGuns.com. I also encourage you to check out my website at gunspoliticsandfreedom.com. Spell out the and, gunspoliticsandfreedom.com, where you can find both my writings and earlier editions of the show. See you next Sunday at 5.